Welcome back to the Coach's Corner on the Vanguard Athletics Podcast Network. My name is Mike Teague, and I am joined, as always, by our friend Jeff Melton here. And Jeff actually had a chance to sit down and talk with head coach of our women's volleyball team, JP Dorn, earlier. And Jeff, what was your top takeaway with your conversation with Coach JP Dorn?
Yeah, one of the things I enjoy about JP's story is she was a little bit of a late bloomer, and then kind of reached the top as an All-American at USC. And I've always thought that experience that she went through is directly tied to how she coaches. She referenced during our conversation, which you guys will get to listen to here in a second, about how kind of when she's looking, she's kind of trying to find who she was, when she was a high schooler, someone who's a little raw, who hasn't been given the proper coaching, hasn't been taught how to do it, but has all the potential in the world, and trying to make sure that they get the same opportunity to grow and maximize their potential as she had. So that's the on-the-court part. And then the off-the-court part is just how she's so intentional and dedicated to developing their spiritual side and allowing these young women to truly know who they are, who God has created them to be, and to be able to live in the freedom of that and to be comfortable with the uncomfortable that comes alongside, opening your heart and your soul up in that way.
Yeah, that's great. And I know Coach Dorn, we've seen it as she's coached, and I'm excited to hear about this conversation just because she was such a high-level athlete, but you would never think it. She's seriously so humble, and she does such a great job at loving on her girls in such an intentional way. And just the ability to translate the success that she had in college and now being able to translate that. This is her first head coaching position, right?
Correct,
and now
yes.
she's able to really take those skills and grow this team. And we've seen a ton of growth in this team within the last couple of years. And I think that is a huge part due to JP being, once again, very intentional about just finding that maximum potential that you talked about and really being able to go through and find these little things that she can fix. And we've seen the success on the court through that as well. So I'm really excited to hear this conversation. And so, Jeff, any other thing you want to talk about with that?
Yeah, it's actually interesting because, across all of our coaches here on campus, we have kind of just a gamut of experiences and what led them here. But what makes JP so unique is that she spent 5 years as a residence director out at a school in Riverside. So it's just so interesting how when she was in that mindset, how she actually pulls from that every day on and off the court. So it's not all X's and O's. X's and O's are all a byproduct of what you're doing in the hearts and the minds of these student athletes on a day in, day out basis, and how, she's as competitive as they come and she wants to win every point, every set, every match. But her goal is not to win games. Her goal is to develop godly women for their future and to create people who are going to then impact the world for Christ.
That's so good. And that's actually one thing most coaches, at least coaches we have, they've been career coaches. So they don't actually have that experience of, not they don't have the experience, but they haven't had the type of training that JP would have had as a residence director. The residence directors, I mean, they do a lot. They're counselors. They work with the spiritual side of things. And so for JP, she's once again able to transform lives, and she's done that really well. And so we will stop talking about it. We'll let you guys listen in on the conversation. So without further ado, here is Jeff Melton's conversation with head volleyball coach JP Dorn.
All right, we're here with women's volleyball head coach JP Dorn. First, we're gonna talk a little bit about you back when you were a player. Folks might not know back at home that you were a two-time All-American, correct, at USC?
Technically 1.5.
1.5.
Honorable mention the last year.
Okay. I was gonna ask how we get the half there. So, but you were kind of a late bloomer in volleyball. You've described yourself in the past as a giraffe when you showed up at USC. Couldn't really walk, couldn't really run. So, just 60 seconds here. What was life like when you were a player at USC?
It wasn't the giraffe phase. It was I was a ball of athleticism, but had I had no coaching really. I didn't start playing club till my junior year of high school. And I remember going to club tryouts and they'd ask me to hit an A, hit a 3, hit it. And I'm like, I don't know what those are. Mm-hmm. And so, they would teach me and I'm like, oh, like that. And they're like, yeah, that'll do. So, it was a lot of just naivety and, not knowing really how to play at that level. So when I got there, USC was a very, very overwhelming, just absorbing and learning so much that either I hadn't been taught yet or just the intensity of it, the longevity of practices, all those things just playing into that. And so it was a matter of, for me, honing skills that I didn't really know I had yet. So in trial by fire, that's how I learned. So we had a senior go down and I was their next in line and started playing as a freshman and made a lot of mistakes, but also made a lot of great plays and great things and learned from every single moment of those. So it was super fun, stressful, but super fun.
So as you kind of transitioned out of being a player, now you were an assistant for many years, which we'll get to in a second, but you're now the head coach at Vanguard. Do you call back on those times where you were naive about things, and does that help you as a coach today to be able to relate on the level of the
100%,
players?
Yeah. I kind of have a heart towards those girls who are late bloomers or just really athletic and haven't, been able to have the coaching or something like that. And so I probably gravitate to those girls more than others, but to see potential in people that maybe others can't. And it definitely, it plays a little more into my patience in general, and just allowing room for growth and room for learning.
Definitely. So as you transitioned out of being a player, you kind of got into the assistant coaching role for many, many years, multiple stops along the way. What was it about volleyball that made you, hey, I'm going to make a career out of this. I want to be a coach?
For me, it's always been the purpose behind really the coaching aspect. It's the mentorship. It's the relationships. It's the knowing who I became in college. Knowing that I can be a part of that process for somebody else. And a coaching role plays such a huge part in that because, you're seeing those people every day. It's not like, being a club coach or even a high school coach where you see them 1 to 2 hours a day. Like I'm seeing these girls all travel trips every day in practice, weights, coming into my office, doing one-on-ones, like a lot of just connection time. And so I was a residence director for 5 years as well. And so that taught me a lot about relating and just mentorship in general, which has definitely played into my coaching purpose and all those kinds of things. So, as much as I feel like I have I have a lot of technical knowledge and all those things from my playing days and just coaching in general career, and combined with the purpose and passion behind the coaching aspect of it, it's just a really fun profession.
So you are in your third year here at Vanguard. So far, you haven't been here as long as some of your other stops along the way, but what would you say about your Vanguard experience so far as being the head coach of the women's volleyball team?
Well, it's funny because I didn't really want to ever be a head coach. I loved the assistant coaching role. And a lot of that was because of the conversations and the mentorship side. I think the girls are a little less guarded around their assistant and all those kinds of things. But in my last role, in my last college I was at, I was playing much more of the head coach than I was the assistant. And so it kind of was like, well, I'm doing this anyways. Like, why not pursue a place where I know I can do both, which is, share Christ and also coach good volleyball still. And it was one of those things where it had to be the right environment because I didn't want to continue up the ranks of, we'd been at D1 and D2s and, just it's such a rat race, and it you have to be all in for those, and you have to be okay with sacrificing so much of your life and time. And we had done that. And so it was definitely that moment of like, we need balance, and balance to me looks like a place like Vanguard. And so when I had, contacted Vanguard and found out, Chris was already going through the beach process. We knew Vanguard through the old GSAC when we were at Cal Baptist. And so it was like, we had this knowledge of Vanguard already. And it was like, oh my gosh, like this could be a great place. Like they're great in their conference, like in the GSAC and all those kinds of things. And so it was kind of an exciting time to be like, this could be where we could hunker down and like start life and just really be happy coming back to California and all those things. And so I have absolutely loved my experience at Vanguard. The support, the relationships, just the intimacy of the campus, all those things. Every small school will have its quirks, but I think Vanguard makes up through the relationship aspect and support aspect. It's been a really fun process so far.
Absolutely. So in your mind, you kind of touched on a little bit, but what if there's one thing that makes Vanguard different in addition to that intimacy on campus and those relationships, what would you say it is?
Yeah, it's kind of what I tell recruits too. Like, this is an unusual place. It's you don't get the care that you get at most schools like you do at Vanguard, in the sense of everything from professors, staff, your coaches, your athletic administration. Like, everyone cares so much about the growth of the student, and just, it's not just about their sport, and there's a lot of places that I know that can tout that and say that, and yet there's a big disconnect. But I think we execute that well here. And even on just our own team and culture, like, we do so much to pour into our girls, and whether it's, Bible study together or team bonding or working on mental training and journaling, and just, there's so many different aspects that we do outside of just our sport. And so that creates a well-rounded person, not just an athlete. And so that's what's exciting to me, and what's so different to me at Vanguard is like, we truly get to coach the whole person.
Diving a little bit deeper into the culture, culture of honors is how you promote it and talk about it very openly with everyone on your team, all over campus. What do you do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to dive deeper into that and to create that atmosphere for your team?
Yeah, a lot of our work is done in spring. Like, we do, well, I guess spring and fall, but we do a lot that builds into getting to know each other outside, like being vulnerable. It all comes down to being vulnerable and creating trust on our team. And we started with life stories when I got here. Just who are we outside of volleyball? Like, what have we been through? What are the things that have made us who we are? We do life stories. We do, like I said, our Bible studies in spring to bring vulnerability to who are we in Christ. That's, a huge ultimate thing here. And for me personally, and we develop like our mental training. We do things outside of that pour into how do we have healthy conflicts. We've brought in people that discuss those things, and conflict is inevitable, and it doesn't have to be negative. It's just a way to work through something so we can continue to stay on the same page. And, that's been a challenge. It's not something that people are good at or want to do. So it's been a learning curve, and learning how to say, like, no, that actually bothers me. I need to say that out loud and bring that person in on this conversation, so we don't have this disconnect between relationship. And so we've done that. We've been working hard on that this year, and have had some good responses and great outcomes of that, and trying to keep us on the same page in that. So, it's been, like I said, it's been a learning curve through it, but we do a lot that continues to develop the vulnerability and trust side of our team. Without that, we're just a bunch of volleyball players. Like, we're trying to create real community and real relationships on the team, that it's not just a group of people that come together for a couple hours a day and then depart. Like, these girls are living life. They're in the same classes. A lot of them live together. You know, they've got to learn how to create community when they leave college. They don't have the instant family. And it's like, how do I learn how to make community? Okay, well, on our volleyball team, we talked about life stories and went deeper with people. We, invited people over for small groups and things like that. They're learning ways to create people to be invited and to come in.
So you've talked a lot about how the off the court is way more important than anything you're doing during your 2-hour practice every day. How do you personally, as a coach, and then for your team, how do you define success?
That's actually been a conversation that we've had a lot this year. If you look at our success as results of wins and losses, we look like we're doing very well, and we are. Like, we have a good record and things like that, but we really focus on the process. What are the things that we can control? What are the things that we are doing in our skill set well? Because the outcome will be a natural outcome for that process if we're doing it correctly. And so success for us is honestly just being able to control the things we can control on the court. Success for me is a lot of stuff outside the court. Like, one of our girls got baptized beginning of the year. Like, just hearing, stepping into a room and hearing conversations of girls having meaningful conversations about who they are and what they're learning that Jesus is teaching them, or something that they're going through that's hard, that, the girls surround each other and help each other with. Like, those are successes as much as, what are we learning on the court and how are we, playing our game. So, because when I look back, like, we're not going to remember a certain match or all those things. We're going to remember, those things that stand out that are community and relationship oriented.
So what was it that when you started working at Vanguard where you were like, these are the things I need to do outside the court in order to foster the vision? When you were on those airplanes in those quiet moments before you ever, step foot on the court here for the first time, and you were mapping out, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it. And, like we say around Vanguard all the time, start with the end in mind. What's the end goal? And then go backwards and fill it in from there. Kind of, what were those first initial thoughts and moments like?
Yeah. Well, one, it was getting the girls to understand that I'm here as a support structure for them. That, like, they need to know me as much as I need to know them. And that's always hard coming into a program, because it's change. And there's some people who don't want change, and there's some people that do, and that's okay. And so stepping into, first of them, understanding who I am and being vulnerable with them right away. I remember our first, I took the team to Mammoth, and I did our first life story, and it was within, it was like my dad had passed away 2 years prior, and it was something I didn't talk about, but was part of my life story. And I started sharing it, and obviously, like, getting emotional and things like that. And I remember the girls just being like, what do we do with this right now? Like, our head coach is crying, and we don't even, So for me, leading out of vulnerability is leadership sometimes. And I'm not perfect, and I'm not, doing things perfect all the time. And they need to know that. It's okay. So that was a huge aspect. And then the other aspect was them being vulnerable and building trust with each other, because I think there was a lot of self-protection and things like that. So, that was a huge key piece, is getting people to be open about who they are and not being in an environment where that's being held against them or judging, or, or if someone's going to take that information and do something with it. So that was kind of my first big piece, was creating vulnerability. And then the second one was obviously just the X's and O's of, like, my philosophy in volleyball, and how I coach different positions and what we're looking for in our offense and all those kinds of things. But it's funny when you come into a program, because you're fighting a lot of different battles of being able to move forward is always hard. And so allowing time for people to, if they need to vent or be sad or grieve, like the change, that's fine. But then being able to like, all right, now we're moving forward and this is where we're going. So yeah, that was kind of where my head was at.
Absolutely. So we are in the back half of our conference schedule,
Yes.
playing teams a second time. What's the biggest challenge that comes with facing a team for the second time? Whether you got the win the first time or a loss the second time and have to battle through that.
Yeah. Our biggest mantra this year, I would say, is adaptability in general. The team that's going to adapt the quickest and most effectively is going to win points and it's going to win the match. And it's something that we've struggled with kind of throughout the season. And so now going into the second half of conference, you need to be able to adapt even more because these teams now, who their big hitters are, tendencies, all those kinds of things. And if you can continue to adapt quickly to those things and not take a full set or 2 full sets to like either remember or, change something up, you'll be more apt to score points quicker than the other team. So, I think the biggest aspect to the second half is being adaptable and being able to be adaptable quickly. And so that's something that we're getting better at and we've been really working on the last few weeks in general. And we've had to adapt a lot just with some injuries of starters and things like that. So we're working through it and I'm really excited we've had some great practices the last few weeks, which didn't really translate so much into our matches, but I think we're going to be making, and hoping we're going to be making that stride now into our latter half that I think we've settled down. We know where we're going. We know our roles now as we've had to change some things up. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how we respond. So
we got six games left in the regular season. We got the Arizona schools in here this weekend, Ottawa this Friday, and then Arizona Christian on Saturday. So, JP, thanks for stopping in and talking to us.
Yeah.
And we'll see you on the court.
All right, and welcome back once again. Incredible conversation. So we talked to you guys about all these different things that you're going to hear in this, and I think you heard all of what JP's heart is. It's transforming lives. It's her experience. It's all of that together, and that was awesome, Jeff. I mean, what were some takeaways from you just hearing that conversation, just kind of reflecting a little bit on that after speaking with head coach JP Dorn?
It made me want to play for her.
Yeah.
It made me want to be on her team. I'm one of the few people in our athletic department that did not play college athletics. I was a little too short, a little too slow to pull that off. But she just fires you up, and she has the right amount of competitive drive without it becoming all-encompassing like she has. And as a coach who's been an assistant and now a head coach, worked in the NCAA Division I, Division II, all across the country, Midwest, West Coast, and the South, kind of all over the place. It really gives her a unique perspective, and I really think that helps her stay grounded in what she wants to do. And I think what she entered into this role about 2.5 years ago, what she wanted to accomplish, I think she's still living that mission out every day.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where you see that every day. She is so grounded, and she cares about what truly matters. I think what a lot of times you get with especially younger coaches maybe is they get so caught up in these little things that don't matter, but JP knows what matters, and she focuses on those big things, and the little things will fall into place after that, right? And so, I thought that was an incredible conversation. So thanks, Jeff, for doing that one.
Absolutely. So we thank all of you guys for listening. Be sure to subscribe and to follow us along. Be sure to tell your friends, and you'll be hearing more from us. Again, every Tuesday you will hear from one of our student athletes on our Stories of Significance feed. Yep. And then every Friday you'll hear from one of our coaches here on the Coach's Corner.